Hello, first graders. My name's Amy.
And my name's Susan, and we work for the City of Fishers Parks Department. And today we've partnered with your school to bring you a very special program.
We're going to learn about nature.
And you're first graders, so we call this program
Nature First. It's a beautiful day in the prairie today. Look at this wide open sky. Do you see some clouds and the sun, maybe even an airplane going overhead? You know, the prairie habitat is a lot different than our other two habitats here. These plants that live on the prairie, they're sun-loving plants. You see this open sky? They can get all the sunshine they need, all the rain that comes down. Let's learn some more about the plants that call the prairie their home.
The word prairie means grassland, and I'm not talking about the kind of grass that you'll find in front of your apartment or your house. I'm talking about big, tall grass, taller than me, taller than an Indiana pacer. This grass is nice and dense and compact, and it provides a very safe cover for all the insects and animals that live on this area of the prairie. Speaking of insects, that reminds me of the monarch butterfly. Let's go find the plant that the monarch butterfly needs to survive. It's called milkweed.
This tall plant is a milkweed plant, and it's growing right here on the prairie. You see, animals and plants have life cycles. This milkweed plant sprouted up late last spring when the weather started to warm up and the air started to get warm. And it grew and grew and grew. And in the middle of the summer, it had a flower on it. And the reason for that flower was to make seeds. The flower changes into a little pod, a little container that carries the seeds. After the flower fades, the seed pod starts to grow. When the pod is fully grown, it contains tiny milkweed seeds attached to silky threads. When the seed pod bursts open, the wind carries these seeds through the air. If these little milkweed seeds happen to land on good soil, what do you think might happen? You're right, a new milkweed plant might start to grow. That's important because milkweed is really important to the survival of the monarch butterfly. The female monarch butterfly lays her eggs on a milkweed plant. No other plant will do. She'll lay it on the milkweed. And then 3 days later, out will pop the larva, the caterpillar. And the caterpillar emerges from that hungry, ready to eat this milkweed. So the milkweed plant is vital to the survival of our monarch butterflies. There are thousands of plants here on the prairie, but the little monarch larva only eats milkweed.
So if we want to enjoy monarch butterflies, we have to protect the milkweed. Now, milkweed grows in places that are open and sunny like our prairie, and Hamilton County and Fishers used to have a lot of open and sunny areas like this, along the roadsides and along the White River. But as our communities grew and we built more houses and schools and those important things like police stations and fire stations, things we needed, it did take up a lot of the place where milkweed could be found. So, as protectors of Ritchie Woods, maybe you can help us think how we can add more milkweed to our community.
Let's think about the seasons that are coming up, fall and winter. I bet you can think about what it might look like outside your window when those seasons come. But what happens to all of these prairie plants during the winter? Well, put your arm up like mine. Let's pretend that this is the prairie ground right here, and that these are all these plants that are waving here on the prairie today. You see, it's a beautiful fall day here now, and these plants are all doing great. But soon, we're going to get a hard frost. You know what that's like when you walk out and the ground is all frosty and your windows are all frosty. And then soon after that, the first snowflakes start to fly. So all those plants that were waving up here, They're going to die down and they're going to lay right here on top of the prairie floor. Now take your hand like this and make a T-Rex claw. And put it under the ground like this. Under the ground here where we can't see, all these prairie plants have roots. And those roots are holding fast in the soil. And they're not going to die this winter. They're going to stay alive all winter long. And next spring, when it starts to warm up, the air will get warm, the soil will get warm. Those roots that have been underground all winter are going to send up new shoots, new plants. And next spring, there'll be more plants growing on our prairie habitat. You see, these plants have a life cycle too, and they've learned to adapt to our winter cold here. It's part of their life cycle. Now let's look at another prairie plant.
This is a dogwood tree, and it has something on it right now that is very interesting. It's part of its life cycle. This dogwood has berries on it. Now, earlier this spring, this dogwood was covered with flowers, and then the tree made those flowers into berries, and each one of these berries has the seeds of the dogwood tree. Yes, the seeds of the dogwood are inside these berries, and these berries provide food for the birds and the animals that come into the prairie. The seeds are inside, but what happens if one of these berries falls to the ground and doesn't get eaten? Well, it'll probably turn into a new dogwood tree.
So let's review what we've learned today. The word prairie means grassland, and there are many different kinds of grasses that grow here on the prairie. A lot of them are taller than people. Milkweed is another plant that grows on the prairie, and it's the only plant that the monarch butterfly will lay its eggs on, and the only plant that the monarch caterpillar will eat. Prairie plants die back on top of the ground in winter, but their strong roots under the ground hold the plant in place and will send up new growth when spring arrives and the weather warms up. All living things go through changes here in the prairie habitat. The animals, the plants, the insects, they're all moving through their life cycle. Hey, animals, plants, and insects. Those are 3 categories of living things.
A category is a group of things that share something alike. For example, Amy and I are both girls. We belong in the girl category, and if you're a girl, you'd be in our category too.
Hey, and we both work for the Fishers Parks Department. That's an example of a category. Could you guys be in the Fishers Parks Department category? No, not yet. You're still students.
Grab an adult, walk around your home, or better yet, come out to Ritchie Woods and start looking around and see what kind of categories things fall into. Plants, animals, insects, they're all categories. And then you can write or draw about it. And after you do that, share it with your teacher or your family or even your classmates.
Go outside and take a walk around your neighborhood and find what plants are living around where you live. See you next time.